where the imagery of a flying dragon. Dragons were, for the most part, at least the one we are looking at in Job chapter 41, is a very ferocious sea animal that comes up on land. Now, did that particular one have a flying ability? I would say definitely not. And why not? Because God says, I'm going to describe it in detail, and which is what he did. He described it in detail. Now, there was one particular thing that was quite interesting, and that was that this terrible sea monster in Job chapter 41 evidently lived in the sea, but he climbed up onto dry land, or muddy land, I guess, just dirt. But he left these marks as he moved onto the ground. He left these marks which would indicate that his underside was not smooth like a horny toad or a lizard, but that he had something very unusual from what we're thinking concerned, and that is his underside was not smooth, or it would not have been, first of all, it would not have been of note, and second of all, it wouldn't have been something that would have been an unusual description. And I think we find in Job chapter 41, those things described there indicate how unusual that particular animal was. Will we ever find that particular skeleton or remains? I hope we're in the midst of finding it in England, which would be a real nice place to have to go and study about this. So if you're ready to go to England to look at this, count me in, I'll go with you. So there's unusual things. Now, if we'll ever find one in our lifetime, I don't know the answer to that. Nobody does. But as Gary and I were talking about, our technology is allowing us to find things that we would not have noticed quite a few decades ago. And in particular is the collagen, the soft tissue that is found in these ancient dinosaur bones that's not supposed to be there. Well, why are we finding it now? Well, we have better technology. We have people looking for stuff now that weren't 100 years ago, not near so many then as it is now. And we have the technology now to find some of these things. So as our technology increases, we may wind up finding things that are as shocking as that soft tissue in those supposedly ancient prehistoric dinosaur bones. Did man and dinosaurs live at the same time? Yes. Did pterodactyls and man and pteranodon, the flying lizard, did they live at the same time as man? Definitely yes. How do we know this? First of all, because it's what's in the scriptures. That's primary. If it's in the Bible, then it happened. If not, then throw that thing away. If the Bible is not accurate, then why in the world would you base your life on it? So it's accurate. Do I understand it all? Absolutely not. But if it's there, then it's accurate. Now, we can go about proving the accuracy. One example for, I guess, centuries, this idea of the great nation of the Hittites. We were told, no, they never existed. If they had have existed, we would have had some record of some sort about the Hittites other than just what's in the Bible. Because that was the only place we ever found it, was in the Bible. This great nation of people called the Hittites. And so since we couldn't find it anywhere else, it must have not existed. And then lo and behold, in Turkey, where they were not looking, in Turkey they found the gatepost and the lintel across it that says, home of the Hittites. So all of a sudden, there it was. Not where we thought it would be, But there it was. And there's many, many other things. One that we were talking about earlier. If you're keeping up, especially on the internet, about things that are proving the world is coming to an end. The world is coming to the end. The rapture is about, and oh, I love to get on the rapture. That one's fun. That one is fun. But the Euphrates River is drying up. Have any of you noticed that on the internet? And how drastic it is that the Euphrates River is drying up. And the Euphrates River is drying up. And there's reasons for it. But in the Bible, it says that the Euphrates River will be dried up and the end will be. And so, well, now the Euphrates River is drying up. So the end of the world must be right at hand. The only problem is they forgot to really study what it's talking about in the Bible. Well, in the Bible, did it indicate the Euphrates River is drying up? Yes, it does. And was that the end that followed quickly? Yes, it was. But we're still here. That's because we got to look at the context. What was it the end of? Was it the end of the road? Was it the end of your loan on your vehicle? There's a lot of ends to things. And so we go back. Why was God putting an end? Why was God drying up the Euphrates River? So that the end could happen where it was impossible. As long as the Euphrates River, oh, here I am getting off into history. I apologize. My wife says, don't get him started. You can't find the off switch. God dried up the Euphrates River to bring an end to a situation in which God needed his people out and send them back home. Now, there's the clue. You can go read that. Who dried it up? Why was it dried up? Well, the Euphrates River, we'll go ahead and throw it out and then I'll get off of it. The Euphrates River was used by God. He had a guy by the name of Cyrus dried up. And why did Cyrus dry it up? Because his white horse drowned in the Euphrates River. So what's so bad about a white horse drowning? What's so bad about losing a white horse? Well, if George Washington had have lost Ajax, it would have been terrible. But Ajax lived to be a ripe old age. That's his white horse. All of these generals have horses, plural, but they reserve the white horse because that's what's used whenever they come riding in victorious. I'm riding on a white horse. That's an indication that that general is victorious. Oh, well then we find that in Revelation, don't we? Oh, we find so many. History will grab you by the hind legs and won't let you go. There is so much stuff in the Bible that we just seem to gloss over that has so much that we miss out. And it's to our detriment. We're missing out on a lot of fun stuff if we don't study the Bible and at least look at it from several different viewpoints. One is from the historical. From the historical part of it, the Bible is just fantastic. Look at the book of Daniel, that whole book, the entire book, but especially the last 2 chapters. And it will just make you go, wow, 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 that really happened. Exactly in the detail in which it's described in the last 2 chapters of Daniel. Oh, Daniel's a fabulous book. Okay, here's the off switch. Get him off of it. All right. Questions on this whole section of chapter 40 and 41 of Behemoth and Leviathan. What questions come to your mind that we haven't delved into? Stick your hand up and say, hey, what about this? I know you got some questions. You'd be the only group of people that I've ever met that didn't have.
Glenn?
Yep.
I'm a little confused. Why is the pterodactyl not considered a dinosaur?
I have read that and it went right over my head. The body, I guess it's the body design is different. Yeah, I read that back a few years ago and it did not stick in my head, so I don't have that answer. But there's something about them that's not quite a dinosaur. Now, how big are dinosaurs? Yes, all sizes. The average size of a dinosaur was a large rooster. But now we don't spend time studying about animals that are the size of a large rooster. We'd rather study about animals that are, 20 feet tall or 40 feet tall, because they're more exciting, unless you get woke up in the middle of the night by a large rooster and then things can get really exciting real fast. Now, there's also, when I was a little kid, we had a banty rooster, and that little thing was little bitty, but he did not know he was little bitty. And he would just tear your ankles up. That's as high as he could reach with his beak. So, just because we look at a docile animal like behemoth, compared to a Leviathan in Job chapter 41, there are attributes about the different ones. Some of those might have been pretty ferocious that were, size of a German shepherd or the size of a banty rooster. If it had the right teeth and motivation, that could tear you up. That's a good question. And I wish that my brain was geared to such that I could understand what the difference was. Excellent question. Come on, you got questions or comments or answers? Answers. We need more answers than questions.
Tell you what the internet says.
Do what?
Tell you what the internet says.
Yeah, be careful what that internet tells you. Very careful.
When a pterodactyl and a dinosaur, that's it.
Yeah. The internet can lead you astray. My daughter was going to the University of Texas, and one of the professors at the University of Texas told his students that don't go to the internet to get the answers, preparing for the test. And he kept telling them this, and he felt like it was his duty to go into the Wikipedia and give incorrect information to determine which of his students were using Wikipedia to get the answers. Now, that means that if you and I went to Wikipedia and asked that same question, there's a chance we might get that professor's answer, which would be wrong. So don't just get one answer and stick with it. Study to show thyself approved in a lot of things. Other questions? All right, did dinosaurs and man exist at the same time?
Yes.
Yes, they did. And do we have proof that dinosaurs and man lived at the same time?
Yeah, we have oil. Didn't oil come from dinosaurs?
I don't know that that's correct. And the reason I don't know that that's correct is because I was on a flight with a guy who was the head of, wasn't Halliburton. Anyway, one of the large ones. He and I were sitting close together. And I asked him that question. And he said, don't know for sure. And I said, if you don't know for sure, how would we get the answer? He said, maybe whenever we get to heaven, you can ask that question. And, but coal, we know coal came from plant life. I would think that oil came from animal life, such as whale oil and that kind of stuff, as well as oil that we're digging. Now, and you open up a big question there. All right, why do we find oil deep? Well, there's a big question.
So it's evaporate.
Say it again?
So it doesn't evaporate?
What that would do, as far as that is concerned, oh, didn't fall off at all. If it's down low, then that means that we probably have had things over. And I say that because there's things on this earth that are so unusually placed. Yesterday was looking at fossils, fish fossil pictures of fossils, and one fish, full-size fish, my size that I normally catch, was found up on the Himalayas, way up on the mountains. Well, how did that fish get up there? Well, I guess a fisherman could have lost it up there, but if he was much of a fisherman, he probably would have ate it before he got up there, because the skeleton was in full tack. If you are standing on Mount Everest this year, if you've climbed to the top, the highest point, next year somebody that climbs to the top of Mount Everest will stand higher than you stood, and the following year. And that's because as the continents are a result of it, but as we have the earth doing all this shifting stuff, it's still pushing. And the Himalaya mountains is one area where it's still pushing up. And if we get into more of study of this, that probably started low and went up. There is an area of the eastern side of the state of Washington, and I guess it's the central and western side of Montana. I believe I got my states correct up there. They've recently been doing a lot of aerial and studying, and if you get to looking at that and studying that, you'll see that that vast wasteland is a result of flooding. Now that's something they've really been into in the last couple of years. Now we're getting off here onto Moses and the ark, as preacher and Warren said, he always puts Moses on the ark. But the flood, the worldwide flood, those things are beginning to now being really studied in earnest by geologists who are really wanting to know the answer rather than supporting some preconceived idea. And that's something that you and I have to be careful with. Preconceived ideas. Now, if we read it in the Bible, then I'll go with that preconceived idea. But sometimes we get ideas that are not found in the scriptures and are not found in fact, and sometimes I just like my ideas better than your ideas. But the flood, if you look at now they're saying that the Colorado River, that all of that erosion was not done over millions of years, but as a result of other places where they're finding erosion, it gives the same result as a fast erosion. Up in Colorado, there are some unusual, extremely high, narrow peaks. Peaks, I guess you'd call it. I guess it's flat on top, so it wouldn't be a peak, would it? But those things are showing evidence of fast flooding, whether it be from the Noah's flood or whether it be for some later, that we can't determine. But fast flooding creates extreme erosion. And Job 40 and 41 wouldn't have been the place for that. But there are places where a volcano, a particular one that they've been looking and reading about, they show the ground level before the erosion created by the volcano and other things that joined in with that, and now it looks like the Grand Canyon. And that's only been in a very, very few years that it's gone from a nice, smooth running area now to crags and valleys and things of that nature. So this idea that what we see is evidence that the world is millions and millions of years old, no, it's not. Because they can show other places where the same results came from what we know is a fast moving nature. Another one is, it's up near Scotland, where a volcano erupted and it broke through the water level, the ocean. And they've been watching this particular small island, and now it has all the evidence, sandy beaches, animals there now. That where did they come from? Well, a lot of those come from birds dropping things, and we've seen them do that to even make fish in lakes, man-made lakes. But that particular island up there, they've been watching it, and it now looks like an old piece of ground. And it's only been a few decades. So just because you read something that says, well, this is evidently millions of years old, it's not necessarily evident that it's millions of years old. It just happens to fit in somebody's belief system.
Just to follow up on that, in the 70s, they said in 10 years we'd run out of oil.
Yes.
And in the 80s, what they say, acid rain in 10 years was going to kill everybody. And then in the 90s, it was the glaciers were going to thaw out and whatever.
Right.
I can't remember what this century or this 10 years is.
You must have seen the same thing I saw this past week, where they give that every 10 years, what was the weird thing.
Yeah.
And I kept it and I posted it. Before we leave this, because if I get off, in Kansas, they drained the lake, and all the tree stumps that had been cut off whenever they built the lake in the early part of the last century, those tree stumps were all petrified. And some of the people that were around when the trees were cut off says it's impossible. You can't have petrified tree stumps in my lifetime. Yeah, you can. I've used an arm. I think I mentioned it the first time. An arm, petrified arm, from this joint to this joint. Used it in my college classes for a long time. It was not broken. It was just that part was gone, that part was gone. And this was petrified. And got to looking, and you could see where wide stitching had been. In the panhandle of Oklahoma, a boot print in stone. Even the heel of the boot even has the stitching around it. Not even man-made, well, man-made, but I mean not. Factory, it was factory made, I'll get that out. Anyway, if you want to go back and look at these classes that we've had over the past 2 months, if you'll go to YouTube, and it's Glen, with one N, I'm very conservative with my N's, Glen McCall, and these classes are there. So if you want to pass those on to somebody, feel free to do that. All right, we'll holler at you later.